The mail-order bride stepped off the dusty stagecoach in Marysvale, Utah, on a scorching afternoon in July 1882. Her high collar buttoned to her chin despite the heat, and the cowboy waiting for her knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. Xander Dalton stood beside the general store with his hat in his hands, watching as the woman he had corresponded with for 6 months descended from the coach like she was stepping into her own execution. She wore a dark blue traveling dress that covered every inch of her skin from neck to wrists to ankles, and a bonnet that shadowed most of her face. When she finally looked up at him, her eyes held the kind of fear that made his chest tighten with concern. "Miss Zelda Ashford?" he asked gently, stepping forward. She flinched at his movement, then caught herself and nodded. "Mr. Dalton." "Yes, madam. Welcome to Marysvale." He kept his voice soft, the same tone he used with spooked horses. "Let me get your trunk." "I can manage," she said quickly, reaching for the small trunk the driver was lowering from the coach. "I am sure you can, but I would like to help." Xander moved slowly, telegraphing his intentions as he took the trunk. It was lighter than he expected. 6 months of correspondence had told him she was from Philadelphia, that she was 22 years old, that she had no family left and wanted a fresh start in the West. Her letters had been thoughtful and kind, with a dry sense of humor that had made him laugh out loud more than once. But they had not prepared him for the haunted look in her eyes, or the way she held herself like she expected a blow at any moment. The walk to his ranch was 2 miles outside of town, and he had brought his wagon. Zelda climbed onto the bench seat without assistance, positioning herself as far from him as possible. Xander did not comment, just clicked to the horses and started the journey home. "The town is small but growing," he said, trying to put her at ease. "We have got a general store, a church, a saloon, a telegraph office, and a doctor who comes through once a month. The mining keeps people coming through, but ranching is steadier work." "Your letters mentioned you raise cattle and horses," Zelda said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That is right. Got about 200 head of cattle and a dozen horses at any given time. I break and train them for sale. It is honest work and it keeps me fed." He glanced at her from the corner of his eye. "I know this is not what you are used to. Philadelphia is a big city. This is going to be different." "Different is what I need," she said, and there was something fierce in her tone that made him look at her more closely. The afternoon sun caught her face as she turned, and he saw the edge of something along her jawline, a mark that disappeared under her collar. She noticed him looking and immediately turned away, her hand flying up to make sure her collar was secure. They rode in silence for a while, the wagon wheels crunching over the red dirt road. The landscape around Marysvale was beautiful in a stark way, with red rock formations rising in the distance and scrub brush dotting the valley floor. The Sevier River wound through the land, providing the water that made ranching possible in this part of Utah territory. "I want to be clear about our arrangement," Xander said as his ranch came into view. "I know we agreed to marry, but I am not going to rush you into anything. You can have your own room until you are comfortable. I am not the kind of man who demands his rights just because of a contract." Zelda's head snapped toward him, surprise evident in her expression. "That is very kind of you. It is just decent," he corrected. "I want a partner, Miss Ashford, not a servant or a possession. I hope that is what you want too." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back rapidly. "Yes, that is what I want." The ranch house was modest but well built, a sturdy wood frame structure with a wide porch and a barn beyond. Xander had spent the last 2 weeks cleaning and making repairs, wanting everything to be nice for his bride's arrival. He had even bought real curtains from the general store, replacing the old blankets he had been using. He helped her down from the wagon, careful not to touch her more than necessary, and carried her trunk inside. The main room served as kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace on one wall and a table with 4 chairs. 2 doors led to the bedrooms, and Xander had prepared the larger one for Zelda. "This is your room," he said, pushing open the door. "I will be in the other one. The pump is out back and the privy is behind the barn. I know it is not fancy." "It is perfect," Zelda said, and she sounded like she meant it. She walked into the room slowly, taking in the iron bed frame with its simple quilt, the washstand with a porcelain basin, the small dresser, and the window that looked out toward the mountains. "Thank you, Mr. Dalton." "Xander, please, we are to be married after all." She turned to face him, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "When?" "I thought we could go into town on Sunday. The preacher holds services in the morning and he could marry us after. But like I said, there is no rush if you need more time to settle in." "Sunday is fine," she said quickly. "I would rather have it done." The phrasing struck him as odd, but he nodded. "Sunday it is then. Are you hungry? I have got stew from last night I can warm up." Over dinner, they made awkward conversation. Xander told her about the ranch, about his plans to expand the horse training operation, about the neighbors scattered across the valley. Zelda listened, but volunteered little about herself beyond what she had already written in her letters. She ate sparingly, and Xander noticed she kept tugging at her collar and cuffs as if making sure they stayed in place. That night, lying in his own bed and listening to the sounds of someone else moving around in his house, Xander thought about the woman who had agreed to marry him. Something had happened to her, something bad. The scars he had glimpsed, the fear in her eyes, the way she held herself apart from the world, all of it spoke of trauma. He had known his share of broken things, had spent years learning to gentle wild horses and heal injured cattle. Maybe he could help heal Zelda Ashford too. The next 3 days passed in a strange domestic dance. Zelda proved to be an excellent cook and immediately took over the kitchen, creating meals that were far superior to Xander's simple fare. She cleaned and organized with a quiet efficiency, transforming the ranch house into something that felt like a real home. But she never removed her long sleeves or high collars, even when the summer heat made the house sweltering. She never let Xander get too close, always maintaining a careful distance between them. Xander went about his work, tending the cattle and working with a young gelding he was training. He made sure to keep Zelda informed of his whereabouts, to make noise when he entered the house, to move slowly and predictably. He had learned these techniques with horses, but they seemed to work with his frightened bride as well. On Saturday evening, he found her on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. He sat down on the steps, careful to leave several feet between them. "Beautiful, is it not?" he said. "Yes, I have never seen skies like this." In Philadelphia, there were too many buildings. "Do you miss it?" She was quiet for a long moment. "No, there is nothing there for me anymore." "Your letters said your parents passed. I am sorry for your loss. Thank you." Her voice was tight. "My mother died when I was 16. My father followed 2 years later. That must have been hard, being on your own so young." "I was not on my own." The words came out bitter. "I had an uncle who took me in. He said family was important, that he would take care of me." Xander waited, sensing there was more. "He did take care of me in his way. He made sure I had food and shelter. He just expected payment for his generosity." Understanding crashed over Xander like a cold wave. He kept his voice steady, his posture relaxed, even as fury burned in his chest. "He hurt you." It was not a question, and Zelda did not treat it as one. "Every day for 4 years. He said I was ungrateful, that I deserved it, that no one would believe me if I told. He was right about that last part." When I tried to tell our neighbors, they said I was lying, that I was trying to ruin a good man's reputation. Where is he now? Dead. He drank himself to death 6 months ago. The day after his funeral, I sold everything I had and used the money to answer your advertisement." Xander took a slow breath, processing this. "Zelda, I want you to understand something. What happened to you was not your fault. You did not deserve it, and it will never, ever happen again. Not from me, not from anyone." She turned to look at him, and in the fading light he could see tears streaming down her face. "How can you know that? You do not even know me. You do not know what I look like under these clothes." "I know enough. I know you are brave enough to start over in a place where you do not know anyone. I know you are kind based on your letters. I know you make the best biscuits I have ever tasted. The rest does not matter." "It will matter," she said softly. "When you see what he did to me, the scars he left, you will not want a wife who looks like I do." Xander stood up slowly and moved closer, stopping when he saw her tense. "May I sit beside you?" She nodded hesitantly, and he sat down on the porch, close enough that their shoulders were inches apart. "When I was 19, I worked on a ranch in Wyoming," he said. "There was a mare there, a beautiful Palomino, but she had been abused by her previous owner, beaten and mistreated. When the rancher bought her at auction, everyone said she was too damaged, that he should just put her down. But he worked with her, patient and slow. It took months, but eventually she learned to trust again. She went on to be one of the best horses that ranch ever had. She was not damaged goods, Zelda. She was a survivor. I am not a horse. No, you are not. You are a woman who has survived something terrible, but the principle is the same. You are not broken, no matter what scars you carry. You are here, you are alive, you are building a new life. That takes incredible strength." She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "What if I cannot be a proper wife to you? What if I cannot bear to be touched?" "Then we will figure it out together. There is no rush, Zelda. I mean what I said about being partners. We will take things at whatever pace you need." "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because kindness is not something you should have to question. It should be the baseline of how people treat each other." He looked out at the darkening sky. "And because I have seen enough cruelty in this world, I would rather add to the good." They sat in silence as the stars began to appear, and for the first time since she had arrived, Xander felt Zelda start to relax beside him. Sunday morning dawned clear and hot. Zelda emerged from her room wearing a simple gray dress, still buttoned to the chin and wrists despite the heat. Xander wore his best shirt and vest, his hair slicked back with water. They rode into town in the wagon, neither speaking much, both lost in their own thoughts. The church was a small wooden building that also served as the schoolhouse during the week. About 30 people gathered there on Sundays, most of the ranching families from the valley. As Xander helped Zelda down from the wagon, he saw the curious looks, the whispers behind hands. A mail-order bride was always a source of gossip. Preacher Thompson was a kind man in his 50s with graying hair and a warm smile. He greeted them after the service and led them to the front of the church for the brief ceremony. 2 townspeople served as witnesses, the general store owner and his wife. "Do you, Xander Dalton, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do," Xander said clearly, looking at Zelda with steady eyes. "And do you, Zelda Ashford, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Zelda's voice was barely a whisper, but her answer was firm. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Utah, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Xander leaned forward slowly, giving Zelda every opportunity to pull away. He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, nothing more. He felt her trembling and squeezed her hand briefly before releasing it. They signed the marriage certificate, accepted congratulations from the preacher and witnesses, and headed back to the ranch. Zelda was quiet on the drive home, twisting her new wedding ring around her finger. It was a simple silver band, all Xander had been able to afford, but she had smiled when he slipped it on her finger during the ceremony. "Are you all right?" he asked as they neared the ranch. "I am married," she said, as if testing the words. "I have a husband who does not hurt me. It feels like a dream." "It is real," Xander assured her, "and it will stay real. You are safe here, Zelda." That evening, Zelda cooked a special dinner to mark the occasion, roasting a chicken and making fresh bread. They ate by candlelight, and Xander told stories about his childhood in Missouri, about how he had come west at 18 looking for adventure and found ranching instead. "What about you?" he asked. "What did you want to be when you were young, before everything happened?" Zelda's expression grew wistful. "I wanted to be a teacher. I loved reading, loved learning. My mother used to say I always had my nose in a book. You could still teach. The town could use a school teacher. The current one is talking about moving to California." "I would like that," she said softly, "to be able to do something useful, something good." "You are already doing something useful. You have turned this house into a home in just a few days, but if teaching is your dream, we will work toward making it happen." After dinner, they sat on the porch again. It was becoming their routine, this quiet time watching the stars emerge. Zelda seemed more at ease tonight, sitting a little closer to Xander than she had before. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything. Why did you want a mail-order bride? You are a good man with your own land. You could have courted someone local." Xander considered his answer carefully. "There are not many eligible women in Marysvale, and the ones who are here are either already spoken for or not interested in ranching life. I am 30 years old and I was tired of being alone. I wanted someone to share this life with, someone to build something with. Your letters made me laugh and think. I felt like I could talk to you, like we could be friends as well as spouses. That seemed more important than a pretty face. You might regret that when you see what is under these clothes. Zelda." He waited until she looked at him. "I will not regret it. Whatever you are hiding, whatever scars you carry, they do not change who you are as a person. When you are ready to show me, I will still feel the same way I do now." "And how do you feel?" "I feel lucky. Lucky that you answered my advertisement, lucky that you were brave enough to come here, lucky that I get to know you." She looked away, but he saw a small smile on her lips. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm. Xander worked the ranch during the day while Zelda tended the house and started a vegetable garden behind the barn. She proved to have a gift with growing things, and soon they had tomatoes, beans, and squash thriving despite the harsh Utah sun. In the evenings, they would sit together and talk, sometimes for hours. Zelda began to relax more, to laugh at Xander's jokes, to share stories from her childhood before the trauma. But she still kept herself covered, still flinched away from unexpected touch, still held a part of herself separate and guarded. One hot afternoon in August, Xander came in from working with the horses to find Zelda in the kitchen, her face flushed with heat and her breath coming in short gasps. She was stirring a pot on the stove and sweat dripped down her face. "Zelda, you need to cool down. You are going to make yourself sick in those heavy clothes." "I am fine," she said, but her voice was weak. "You are not fine. Please at least take off the outer layer." "I will go outside if it makes you more comfortable, but you need to cool down." She shook her head stubbornly, and Xander watched helplessly as she swayed on her feet. He caught her before she fell, lifting her in his arms and carrying her to her room. He laid her on the bed and brought cool water and a cloth, wiping her face and neck. As he did so, his hand brushed against her collar, and for the first time, he saw clearly the scars that marked her throat. They were white and raised, clearly deliberate, and they made his stomach turn with anger at the man who had inflicted them. Zelda's eyes opened, and she saw him looking. Immediately, she tried to cover her throat with her hands. "Please do not look at me." "Zelda, listen to me. You need to get out of these heavy clothes before you collapse from heat stroke. I am going to step outside and I am going to close the door. There is a lighter nightgown in the dresser that I bought for you. Put it on and get under the sheet. I will come back in 10 minutes with more water and something light to eat." "All right," she nodded, still trying to hide her neck, and Xander left the room. He stood on the porch, breathing hard, trying to control the rage that filled him. The man who had done this to her was already dead, but Xander wished he could have 5 minutes with him anyway. When he returned to her room, Zelda was under the sheet, wearing the light cotton nightgown. Her arms were under the covers, hidden from view. He set down the water and a plate of bread and cheese. "Thank you," she whispered. "You are welcome. I will leave you to rest. Call if you need anything." "Xander, wait." She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You saw. I saw some. It does not change anything." "How can you say that?" "You saw what he did to my throat. That is only part of it. There are scars on my arms, my back, my legs. He used a knife, said he was marking me so no one else would ever want me. He was right. I am marked, damaged, ruined." Xander moved closer to the bed, his movements slow and careful. "May I sit down?" She nodded, and he sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to crowd her. "You are not ruined," he said firmly. "You are scarred. There is a difference. Scars mean you survived something. They are proof of your strength, not your weakness. They are ugly. I am ugly. You are beautiful. I have thought so since the moment I saw you step off that stagecoach, even though I could barely see your face under that bonnet. You are beautiful because of who you are, not what you look like. You are just saying that. I am not. Zelda, I will prove it to you. When you are ready, when you feel safe enough, you can show me your scars, all of them. And I will show you that they do not matter to me, that they do not change how I see you." She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "I am so afraid." "I know. But you do not have to be afraid of me. I promise you that." Over the next few weeks, something shifted between them. Zelda began to trust Xander more, to let him closer. She still wore her long sleeves and high collars, but she no longer jumped quite so badly when he came into a room. She started to smile more, to make jokes, to show the personality that had come through in her letters. One evening in September, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Zelda said, "Tell me about your parents." "My father was a farmer in Missouri. Good man, hard worker, but the land was too poor to support us. He died when I was 17, just wore himself out trying to make enough to feed us. My mother passed a year later. I think she died of a broken heart. After that, I headed west, figured I would make my own way." "Do you ever wish you had stayed?" "No. There was nothing for me there. Out here I've got land, a purpose, a future, and now I have you." She looked at him, her expression serious. "I want to tell you about what happened, all of it. You deserve to know what you have gotten yourself into." "You do not have to. I want to." She took a deep breath. "After my father died, I had nowhere to go. My uncle said I could live with him, that he would take care of me. At first it was fine. He was strict but not cruel. Then one night, about 3 months after I moved in, he came into my room drunk. He said I owed him for his kindness, that I needed to show my gratitude. I fought him off that first time, but it made him angry. The next night, he came back with a knife." Xander's hands clenched into fists, but he kept his voice calm. "You do not have to continue if it is too hard. I need to. I need you to understand." She pulled her sleeves up slowly, revealing the scars that covered her forearms. They were thin, white lines, dozens of them, crisscrossing her skin in a horrible pattern. He would cut me when I resisted, when I cried, when I did anything he did not like. He said he was teaching me a lesson. After a while, I stopped fighting. It was easier that way. But he kept cutting me anyway, said he liked the way I looked with his marks on me. Xander reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and gently took her hand. She tensed, but did not pull away. He looked at the scars covering her arms, then raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. "I am so sorry that happened to you. You deserved so much better. I tried to tell people, but no one believed me. My uncle was respected in the community, a church elder. I was just a girl who had lost her parents. They said I was hysterical, that I was making up stories for attention, so I stopped trying to tell anyone. I just survived day by day until he finally drank himself to death. How did you bear it?" I read. I would escape into books, into stories where good people won and bad people lost. It was the only thing that kept me sane. And I made myself a promise that if I ever got free, I would go somewhere he could never reach me, even in memory. That is why I came here. I needed to be as far from Philadelphia as I could get. Xander kept holding her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "You are so brave, braver than any person I have ever met." "I do not feel brave. I feel damaged and afraid. Being brave does not mean not being afraid. It means being afraid and doing it anyway. You got on that stagecoach and came to marry a stranger. That took courage. I was more afraid of staying than of leaving. Still counts as courage." He looked at her scarred arms, then met her eyes. "Thank you for trusting me enough to show me. I know that was not easy." "There are more," she said quietly. "The scars on my arms are the least of it. My back, my legs, my stomach. Even my face, though those are smaller. He made sure most of them would be hidden by clothing, so no one would see and ask questions. When you are ready to show me the rest, I will be here. There is no rush. What if I am never ready? Then we will figure out how to work with that. I told you, Zelda, we are partners. We will handle whatever comes together." She leaned against him then, resting her head on his shoulder, and Xander felt a surge of protectiveness so strong it nearly overwhelmed him. He wrapped his arm carefully around her shoulders, ready to let go the instant she tensed, but she just relaxed further into him. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being kind. You deserve kindness. You deserve everything good this world has to offer." They sat like that until the stars came out, and Xander thought that maybe, just maybe, his frightened bride was starting to heal. The autumn brought cooler weather, and with it, more changes. Zelda started wearing lighter clothes around the house, though still with long sleeves and high collars. She laughed more easily now, teased Xander when he came in covered in dust from working with the horses. They fell into an easy companionship, more like close friends than the awkward strangers they had been. In October, the town held a harvest dance at the church. Xander asked Zelda if she wanted to go, and she surprised him by saying yes. She wore her best dress, dark green with a high collar and long sleeves, and Xander wore his suit. They arrived at the church to find it decorated with autumn leaves and lit by dozens of candles. Music came from a fiddle and a guitar, played by two miners who knew how to make the instruments sing. "Would you like to dance?" Xander asked. Zelda looked at the couples swirling around the floor, and for a moment longing crossed her face. Then she shook her head. "I cannot. Too many people. What if we danced out here on the porch? No one around but us and the stars." She looked at him in surprise, then nodded. "I would like that." They stepped out onto the church porch, and Xander took her hand carefully, placing his other hand gently on her waist. Even through the layers of fabric, he felt her tense, but she did not pull away. They swayed to the music drifting out from inside, moving slowly in the moonlight. "When I was a girl, my father used to dance with me in our parlor," Zelda said softly. "He said every woman should know how to waltz. I had forgotten how nice it felt." "Your father sounds like he was a good man." "He was. He would have hated what happened to me. He would have protected me if he had been alive." "I am sure he would have. And I think he would be glad you found your way here, that you are safe now." "Do you really think I am safe? What if my uncle is not the only monster in the world?" "What if there are more?" "There probably are," Xander said honestly. "But there are also good people. More good than bad, I think. And I promise you, as long as I am breathing, no one will hurt you again." "That is a big promise. It is one I intend to keep." They danced until the music stopped, then went back inside for refreshments. Several townspeople approached to greet them, and Xander noticed how Zelda stayed close to his side, using him as a shield against the world. He did not mind. If he could make her feel safe, he would stand between her and anything that threatened her. One November morning, Xander woke to find frost on the ground and Zelda already up, cooking breakfast. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the house, and he smiled as he pulled on his boots. "Good morning," he called, heading into the kitchen. "Good morning. I made extra biscuits. I know you have got a full day planned with those new horses. You spoil me with your cooking." He poured himself coffee and sat at the table, watching her move around the kitchen. "Zelda, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy here?" She turned to look at him, surprise evident on her face. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I want to make sure. I want you to be happy, not just safe. There is a difference." She was quiet for a moment, considering. "I am happier than I have been in years, maybe happier than I have ever been. I have a home, meaningful work, a husband who treats me with kindness and respect. Yes, Xander, I am happy." "Good. That makes me happy too. Can I ask you something? Do you ever regret marrying me?" "I know I am not the wife you probably hoped for. I cannot share your bed, cannot bear children, cannot be a proper wife in many ways." Xander stood up and crossed to her, moving slowly so she could track his movement. "I do not regret it for a single second. You are exactly the wife I hoped for. You make this house a home, you make me laugh, you challenge me to be better. The physical side of marriage that will come when you are ready, or maybe it will not and we will find other ways to be close. Either way, I chose you, and I would choose you again." Tears filled her eyes. "How can you be so patient?" "Because you are worth being patient for, and because I am starting to realize something." "What?" "I am falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, and Zelda's eyes widened. "You are." "I am." "I know that was not part of our agreement, but I cannot help how I feel. You do not have to say it back. I just wanted you to know." She reached out tentatively and touched his face, her scarred hand gentle against his cheek. "I think I am falling in love with you too. That terrifies me." "Why?" "Because everyone I have ever loved has either died or hurt me. What if I lose you too?" "You will not lose me. I am not going anywhere." He covered her hand with his own. "We are in this together, remember, partners." "Partners," she echoed, and she smiled through her tears. Winter came to Marysvale with cold winds and occasional snow. Xander taught Zelda to ride so she could help him check on the cattle when needed. She proved to be a natural, fearless on horseback in a way she was not on foot. He loved watching her ride, seeing the joy on her face as she galloped across the valley on Christmas Eve. They exchanged simple gifts. Xander gave Zelda a set of books he had ordered from Salt Lake City, including several novels she had mentioned wanting to read. She gave him a new pair of work gloves she had sewn herself, sturdy leather lined with soft wool. "These are beautiful," he said, trying them on. "Where did you learn to sew like this?" "My mother taught me before she died. I used to make all my own clothes." "You are incredibly talented." They spent the evening reading by the fire, and at some point, Zelda moved closer to him on the sofa until she was leaning against his side. Xander wrapped his arm around her, and they stayed like that until the fire burned down to embers. The new year of 1883 brought changes. The school teacher who had been talking about leaving finally did, and the town council approached Zelda about taking over the position. She was nervous but excited, and Xander encouraged her to accept. "This is your dream," he said. "You should go for it. What if I am not good enough? You will be wonderful. Those children are lucky to have you." Zelda started teaching in February, and she came alive in a way Xander had never seen before. She would come home full of stories about her students, about the lessons they were learning, about the progress they were making. Teaching gave her purpose beyond survival, and Xander loved seeing her blossom. One evening in March, after a particularly good day at school, Zelda came home glowing with happiness. She cooked dinner while telling Xander about how one of her students had finally learned to read a full page without help. "You are amazing with those children," Xander said. "You were born to be a teacher. I love it. I love helping them learn, seeing their faces when they finally understand something. It makes me feel like I am doing something that matters." You are. You are shaping young minds, giving them tools to build better lives. That matters more than almost anything. After dinner, they sat on the porch despite the cool evening air. Spring was coming to the valley and the first wildflowers were starting to bloom in the hills. "Xander," Zelda said quietly, "I think I am ready." "Ready for what?" "To show you, all of me, all the scars." His heart began to pound, but he kept his voice calm. "Are you sure?" "There is no rush. I am sure. You have been so patient, so kind. You said you loved me, and I love you too. I want you to see all of me, not just the parts I have been willing to show. I want there to be no secrets between us." "All right. What do you need from me? Just stay here. I am going to go inside and change. Then I will come back out and you can see." She went into the house and Xander sat on the porch, his hands trembling slightly. He did not know what he was about to see, but he knew it would be bad. He knew that whatever scars she carried were going to make him wish her uncle was still alive so Xander could kill him slowly. After several minutes, the door opened. Zelda stepped out wearing only her thin nightgown, the kind she wore on hot summer nights. It was simple white cotton with short sleeves and a low neckline. For the first time since he had met her, Xander could see her skin. The scars were worse than he had imagined. They covered her arms, her throat, her collarbone. He could see more peeking out from the neckline and hem of the nightgown. They were deliberate, carefully placed to cause maximum pain while avoiding vital areas. Her uncle had known exactly what he was doing. "This is not all of them," Zelda said, her voice shaking. "There are more on my back, my legs, my stomach, but I thought I would start with what is most visible." Xander stood up slowly and moved toward her. She flinched but held her ground. When he was close enough, he reached out and gently traced one of the scars on her arm. "May I?" he asked. She nodded, not trusting her voice. He traced each scar he could see, his touch feather-light, reverent. He mapped the damage on her arms, her throat, her collarbone, his eyes memorizing every mark. "Beautiful," he whispered. "What? You are beautiful. These scars do not change that. They are part of your story, part of what made you who you are. And who you are is the strongest, bravest, most beautiful woman I have ever known." Tears streamed down Zelda's face. "How can you say that? I am covered in scars, marked forever by what he did to me." "You are covered in proof that you survived. Every single one of these scars means he did not break you. He tried, but you are still here, still fighting, still living. That is beautiful. Xander." His name was a sob on her lips. "Show me every part you think is broken," he said softly. "I will show you that none of it matters. You are not broken, Zelda. You are whole and perfect just as you are." Slowly, with shaking hands, she pulled up the hem of her nightgown to reveal her legs. More scars, some thick and raised, others thin white lines. Then she turned around and Xander sucked in a breath. Her back was covered in scars, layer upon layer of them, a tapestry of pain and survival. He reached out and traced the scars on her back, his touch gentle. "I am so sorry this happened to you. You deserved so much better." She turned to face him again. "There are more on my stomach, but I do not think I can show you those tonight. This is hard enough. You have shown me plenty. Thank you for trusting me with this. You still want me, even looking like this." In answer, Xander cupped her face gently in his hands and leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she did not, he kissed her softly, carefully, like she was something precious that might break. She kissed him back tentatively at first, then with more confidence, her hands coming up to grip his shirt. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "Does that answer your question?" Xander asked. "Yes," she whispered, "but I am still afraid. What if I cannot do this? What if the fear is too much? Then we will take it slow. We will only do what you are comfortable with, and we will stop the moment you need to stop. You are in control here, Zelda, always. Will you hold me tonight? Just hold me, nothing more. I would be honored." They went inside, and for the first time since they had married, Zelda climbed into Xander's bed. He held her carefully, her scarred back against his chest, his arm wrapped around her waist. She trembled at first, old fears rising up, but gradually she relaxed into his embrace. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness. "For what? For seeing past the scars, for seeing me. I will always see you, Zelda, the real you, not just what was done to you." She fell asleep in his arms, and Xander lay awake for a long time, holding the woman he loved and silently promising her uncle's ghost that if there was any justice in the universe, the man was suffering for what he had done. Spring turned to summer, and Zelda and Xander's relationship deepened. They took things slowly, always at Zelda's pace. She started sleeping in Xander's bed every night, finding comfort in his presence. They would kiss and hold each other, gradually learning each other's bodies and boundaries. One hot June night as they lay together, Zelda said, "I want to try. I want to be with you properly as your wife. Are you sure? There is no rush. I am sure. I love you and I trust you. I want this part of our marriage too. I am just afraid it will hurt or that I will panic and ruin everything. If you panic, we stop. No questions asked, no disappointment. We only do this if you are completely sure. I am sure." They came together slowly, carefully, Xander constantly checking to make sure she was all right. There were moments when Zelda tensed, when old fears rose up, but Xander would stop and hold her until she was ready to continue. When it was over, Zelda cried, but this time they were tears of relief and joy. "I did it," she said. "I did not think I ever could, but I did." "You are amazing," Xander said, holding her close. "So strong and brave. Only because I have you, you make me feel safe enough to try." Over the following months, their physical relationship grew more natural and comfortable. Zelda stopped wearing the high collars and long sleeves around the house, no longer trying to hide her scars from Xander. In public, she still covered up, not wanting to deal with questions and stares, but at home, she was free to be herself. In September, Zelda missed her monthly cycle. At first, she thought it was stress from starting the new school year, but when she missed a second month, she began to suspect the truth. She told Xander one evening over dinner, "I think I am with child." Xander's fork clattered to his plate. "Really? Are you sure?" "Fairly sure. All the signs are there." He came around the table and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "How do you feel about it?" Terrified, excited, hopeful, all of those things at once. "I never thought I could have this, a husband and a child and a normal life." My uncle made me believe I would never deserve these things. You deserve everything good, and I am going to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. We are going to have a baby, Zelda, our baby." She laughed through her tears. "We are going to be parents. That is incredible and terrifying. We will figure it out together, just like we have figured out everything else." When the doctor came through Marysvale the next month, he confirmed that Zelda was indeed pregnant. The baby would arrive in early April. They spent the winter preparing, Xander building a cradle and Zelda sewing tiny clothes. Her students were excited when she told them she would be taking a break from teaching after the baby was born, and several of the ranch wives came to visit, offering advice and hand-me-down baby items. Zelda bloomed during her pregnancy. Her face filled out, losing the haunted gauntness that had marked her when she first arrived. She laughed more, smiled more, seemed more at peace than Xander had ever seen her. "I never thought I could be this happy," she told him one evening as they sat on the porch, his hand on her swollen belly feeling the baby kick. "After everything that happened, I thought my life was over. But it was not over, it was just beginning." "You gave yourself a new beginning when you got on that stage, Coach. I am just lucky you chose to start it with me." "I am the lucky one. You saved me, Xander. You showed me that not all men are monsters, that I could be loved despite my scars." "You saved yourself," he corrected. "I just helped you remember that you were worth saving." Their son was born on a beautiful April morning in 1884, arriving with a lusty cry that announced his presence to the world. Xander was there for the birth, holding Zelda's hand and supporting her through each contraction. When the midwife finally laid the baby in Zelda's arms, both parents cried with joy. "He is perfect," Zelda said, studying every inch of their son. "Absolutely perfect. What should we name him?" Xander asked. "I was thinking Thomas after my father, and maybe James for a middle name." "Thomas James Dalton. I like it." "Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the world." The baby opened his eyes and seemed to look right at them, and Xander felt his heart expand with love so fierce it almost hurt. Those first few months with a newborn were exhausting but joyful. Zelda proved to be a natural mother, caring for Thomas with a tenderness that came from knowing what it was like not to be cared for. Xander helped as much as he could, walking the floor with the baby when he was fussy, changing diapers, doing whatever Zelda needed. On a warm June evening when Thomas was 2 months old, they sat on the porch watching the sunset. The baby slept in Zelda's arms and Xander had his arm around her shoulders. "I have been thinking," Zelda said, "about everything that has happened. About how I used to think my scars made me unlovable, that I would never have a normal life." "You were wrong," Xander said softly. "I was. My scars are part of my story, but they are not the whole story. They do not define me. What defines me is what I did after, how I survived, how I found the courage to start over, and how I found you. I found you too. We found each other. You remember what you said to me that first time I showed you my scars? You said to show you every part I thought was broken and you would prove none of it mattered. I remember. You were right. I thought I was broken beyond repair, but I was not broken at all. I was just hurt, and with time and love and patience, those hurts healed. Not the scars on my skin, those will always be there. But the scars on my heart, those are fading. You helped me heal, Xander. You helped yourself heal. You did the hard work. I just loved you while you did it. That was exactly what I needed, to be loved while I learned to love myself again." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to purple to deep blue. The ranch stretched out before them, the land they had built a life on. In the distance, cattle grazed peacefully. In the barn, horses nickered softly. And in Zelda's arms, their son slept, dreaming whatever dreams newborns dream. "I want to have more children," Zelda said. Is that all right with you? More than all right. I would love to have a whole house full. Not too many, maybe 3 or 4. Whatever you want. I am happy as long as I have you and our family. Zelda leaned her head against his shoulder. I love you, Xander Dalton. I love our life, our son, our future. I love that you saw past my scars and loved me anyway. Not anyway. I love you because of everything you are, including your scars. They are part of you, and I love every part of you. Thomas stirred in Zelda's arms, making small, sleepy sounds. Xander reached over and gently stroked his son's soft hair, marveling at the miracle of this tiny life they had created. The stars began to appear overhead, the same stars that had witnessed their first awkward conversations, their slow building of trust, their falling in love. Those stars had seen Zelda's fear and Xander's patience, had watched as a frightened bride became a confident wife and mother. As the night deepened, the family went inside, Xander carefully closing the door behind them. The house was full of warmth and light, a true home built on love and trust and second chances. Over the years that followed, that home would grow and change. 2 more children would arrive, a daughter named Grace and another son named Henry. The ranch would expand, the cattle operation growing prosperous. Zelda would return to teaching part-time, sharing her love of learning with new generations of students. Xander would become known as the best horse trainer in that part of Utah. Men coming from miles around to buy his well-trained animals. But through all the changes and growth, one thing remained constant. Every evening, weather permitting, Xander and Zelda would sit on their porch and watch the sunset together. They would talk about their day, about their children, about their dreams and plans. And they would remember where they had started, 2 damaged souls finding healing in each other. Zelda's scars never disappeared, but she stopped hiding them. Around the ranch, she wore what was comfortable, no longer feeling the need to cover every inch of skin. The scars became just another part of her, no more significant than the color of her hair or the sound of her laugh. She had stopped seeing herself as broken, had learned to see herself as Xander saw her, as whole and beautiful and worthy of love. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Xander gave Zelda a portrait of their family that he had commissioned from an artist in Salt Lake City. In it, they stood together on their porch, their 3 children around them, the ranch stretching out behind them. Zelda was painted as she truly was, her scars visible on her arms and throat, but her expression serene and happy. "It is perfect," she said, tears streaming down her face. "This is exactly how I want to remember this time in our lives." "I wanted you to see what I see," Xander said. "A beautiful woman with the courage to rebuild her life, a wonderful mother, an amazing wife. The scars are there because they are part of your story, but they do not dominate it. You dominate it." They hung the portrait over the fireplace, and it became the centerpiece of their home. When their children asked about their mother's scars, Zelda told them the truth in age-appropriate terms. She explained that sometimes bad things happen to good people, but that surviving those bad things makes you stronger. She taught them to be kind to everyone, because you never know what battles someone else is fighting. The years passed, bringing their share of challenges and joys. There were hard winters when the cattle suffered, dry summers when the crops struggled, illnesses and accidents and setbacks. But through it all, Xander and Zelda faced everything together, their partnership as strong as the red rocks that surrounded their valley. Thomas grew into a serious young man who loved working with the cattle. Grace was fiery and independent, with her mother's love of books and her father's gift with horses. Henry was the family clown, always making everyone laugh with his antics and observations. On a crisp October evening in 1895, 13 years after Zelda first stepped off that stagecoach, The whole family gathered on the porch after dinner. Thomas was 19 now, talking about buying his own piece of land to start his own ranch. Grace was 17, teaching part-time at the school alongside her mother. Henry was 14, still deciding what he wanted to do with his life. "Do you ever regret answering my advertisement?" Xander asked Zelda as they watched their children talk and laugh together. "Never. Not for a single moment. Coming here, marrying you, building this life, it was the best decision I ever made. Even though it was so hard at first, even though you were so afraid, especially because of that. If it had been easy, I would not have appreciated it as much. But working through my fears, learning to trust again, letting you love me, all of that made what we have so much more precious." Xander took her scarred hand in his and raised it to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. After all these years, the gesture still made her smile. "I love you, Zelda Dalton. I have loved you from the moment I saw you step off that stagecoach, and I will love you until the day I die. And I love you. You taught me that scars do not define us, that we are more than the worst things that have happened to us. You taught me to live again." Their children glanced over at them and rolled their eyes good-naturedly at their parents' open affection. Xander and Zelda laughed, not caring what anyone thought. They had earned their happiness through patience and love and hard work, and they were not about to hide it. As night fell over Marysvale, the Dalton family lingered on the porch, not quite ready to go inside. The stars emerged one by one, those eternal witnesses to human joy and sorrow. Somewhere in the darkness, cattle lowed softly. A cool breeze carried the scent of sage and coming winter. Zelda leaned against Xander, his arm warm and solid around her shoulders, and thought about the frightened young woman who had arrived in this valley so long ago. That woman had believed she was broken beyond repair, that her scars marked her as unlovable. She had been wrong on both counts. The scars were still there, faded now with time but still visible. But they no longer represented damage or shame. Instead, they were a testimony to survival, to strength, to the resilience of the human spirit. They were proof that darkness does not last forever, that healing is possible, that love can overcome even the deepest wounds. "What are you thinking about?" Xander asked softly. "About how far we have come. About how you saw past my scars when I could not see past them myself. About how you taught me that being broken and being damaged are not the same thing." "You were never broken," he said firmly. "Hurt, yes, scarred, absolutely, but not broken. Broken things cannot be fixed. Hurt things can heal with time and care. You just needed someone to give you that time and care. And you did. You gave me everything I needed to heal: safety, patience, love, respect. You never pushed, never demanded, never made me feel like my fears were unreasonable. You just loved me and let me heal at my own pace. It was not a hardship. Loving you has been the easiest thing I have ever done." Their children had gone inside now, giving their parents privacy for this moment. Zelda turned to face Xander, taking both his hands in hers. "You know what the best part is?" she asked. "What?" "That I am not the only one who healed. You did too. You were lonely, isolated, closed off from real connection, building this life together, raising our children, learning to be truly intimate with another person that healed something in you too." Xander considered this and nodded slowly. "You are right. I did not even realize how lonely I was until you arrived and filled all the empty spaces in my life. We healed each other. We did. And we built something beautiful in the process." They stood together on the porch, two people who had found each other through an advertisement and a mail-order arrangement, who had built a true and lasting love from the most unpromising of beginnings. Behind them was the home they had made together, full of children and laughter and warmth. Around them was the land they had worked together, the ranch they had built into something prosperous and sustainable. Above them were the stars, watching over them as they had every night for the past 13 years. "Thank you," Zelda said softly. "Thank you for telling me to show you every part I thought was broken. Thank you for proving that none of it mattered, that I was worthy of love just as I was. Thank you for giving me a life I never thought I could have. Thank you for being brave enough to show me. Thank you for trusting me with your broken parts and letting me help make you whole. Thank you for choosing me, for loving me, for building this life with me." They kissed then, a long, slow kiss that held 13 years of love and trust and shared history. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. "Come on," Xander said, taking her hand. "Let us go inside. I can hear Henry trying to convince his siblings to let him have the last piece of cake." Zelda laughed, the sound bright and genuine. "That boy and his sweet tooth. He gets it from you, you know." "I know. And I regret nothing." They walked inside together into the light and warmth and chaos of their family home. The door closed behind them, but through the window, the porch was still visible. Empty now, but holding the memories of countless evenings spent talking and dreaming and falling in love. The frightened bride who had hidden her scars had become a confident woman who wore them openly, understanding at last that they did not define her. The patient cowboy who had asked to see every broken part had proven through years of love and devotion that those parts were not broken at all, just hurt and in need of healing. Together, they had built a life of meaning and purpose, raising children who understood the value of compassion and resilience, running a successful ranch that provided for their family and employed several workers from town, contributing to their community through Zelda's teaching and Xander's reputation for honest dealing. But more than any of those accomplishments, they had created a love story that would be remembered long after they were gone. Their children would tell their own children about the mail-order bride who arrived covered in scars and the cowboy who loved her exactly as she was. They would pass down the story of how patience and kindness can heal even the deepest wounds, how love does not demand perfection, but embraces imperfection with open arms. Years later, when Xander and Zelda were old and gray, they would still sit on that porch every evening, watching the sunset and holding hands. The scars on Zelda's skin would be faded almost to invisibility, lost among the wrinkles and age spots that come to everyone who lives long enough. But the story those scars represented would remain vivid and powerful, a reminder that survival is its own form of victory. Their children would be grown and gone by then, building their own lives and families. Thomas would run a successful ranch of his own, teaching his children the lessons about hard work and integrity he learned from his father. Grace would become a renowned teacher, eventually opening a school for girls in Salt Lake City, where young women could get the education they deserved. Henry would surprise everyone by becoming a veterinarian, using his natural empathy and gentle hands to heal animals the way his father once healed his mother. But all of that was still to come on this October evening in 1895. For now, they were a family in the prime of life, facing an uncertain future with confidence born of love and mutual support. The scars that had once seemed like insurmountable obstacles were now just part of the rich tapestry of their shared history. As Zelda tucked their children into bed that night, she thought about how different her life could have been. She could have stayed in Philadelphia, could have endured her uncle's abuse until it killed her body or her spirit. She could have given up, could have believed the lies he told her about being worthless and unlovable. She could have gotten on that stagecoach and then lost her nerve, turning around and going back to the hell she knew rather than risking the unknown. But she had been brave. She had saved herself, even when she did not believe she was worth saving. And in doing so, she had found not just safety but love, not just survival but a life worth living. When she returned to the main room, Xander was waiting for her, 2 cups of tea in his hands. He passed her one and they settled onto the sofa together, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. "Happy?" he asked. "Incredibly. You, more than I ever thought possible." They sat in comfortable silence, sipping their tea and listening to the house settle around them. Outside, the night was deep and dark, the stars bright in the clear mountain air. Inside, all was warmth and light and peace. "Xander," Zelda said softly. "Yes. Do you remember the first time you kissed me? Really kissed me, not just a peck on the forehead, of course. It was the night you first showed me your scars, the night you trusted me enough to let me see the real you. I was so afraid. I thought once you saw how damaged I was, you would send me away, or at least stop wanting me. I could never stop wanting you. Seeing your scars only made me love you more, because I finally understood how strong you really are. I did not feel strong. I felt weak and broken. Strength is not about never being hurt. It is about getting back up after you have been knocked down. And you did that, Zelda. You got back up over and over until you finally got free. That is real strength." She set down her teacup and turned to face him fully. "I need you to understand something. What you did for me, the patience and kindness you showed, it was not just nice or sweet. It saved my life. I was barely surviving when I got here. I was a shell of a person, going through the motions without really living. You taught me how to live again. You taught me that I deserved love and happiness. You gave me back myself. You give me too much credit. You did the hard work of healing. I just provided a safe place for you to do it. That safe place was everything. You know what it means to spend years feeling afraid in your own skin, in your own home, to never feel truly safe, and then to come to a place where someone makes you feel protected and valued. It was like being reborn." Xander pulled her close, holding her against his chest. "I am just grateful you chose to answer my advertisement. I am grateful for every day we have had together, for our children, for this life we have built. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. And you are the best thing that ever happened to me. We are very lucky, Xander Dalton. We are indeed, Zelda Dalton." They stayed up late that night, talking and laughing and remembering. They recalled the early days of their marriage when everything was awkward and uncertain. They remembered the first time Zelda laughed at one of Xander's jokes, really laughed, and how her face had transformed with joy. They talked about each of their children's births, the terror and wonder of bringing new life into the world. Finally, as the clock struck midnight, they made their way to bed. They had long since started sharing a room, Zelda's old bedroom now serving as a guest room for when family came to visit. They changed into their night clothes and climbed into bed, immediately moving together until they were wrapped in each other's arms. "Good night, my love," Xander whispered, kissing her forehead. "Good night," Zelda replied, already half asleep. Within minutes, they were both sleeping peacefully, secure in their love for each other and the life they had built together. The seasons continued their eternal cycle. Autumn gave way to winter, winter to spring, spring to summer, over and over. The Dalton family grew and thrived, weathering storms both literal and metaphorical with the strength that comes from a solid foundation of love and trust. There were hard times, of course. No life is without struggle. There was the winter when half the cattle died in a brutal blizzard, and they had to rebuild the herd from scratch. There was the year when illness swept through Marysvale and Grace nearly died of fever. Zelda and Xander taking turns sitting vigil at her bedside until the fever finally broke. There was the drought that lasted 3 years, when every day was a battle to keep the ranch running and the family fed. But they faced every challenge together, drawing strength from each other and their unshakable commitment to their family. And in between the hard times were years of prosperity and joy, of watching their children grow and thrive, of building something lasting and meaningful. As promised, Xander and Zelda eventually welcomed more children into their family. After Henry came two more daughters, Ruth and Sarah, born 2 years apart. Both girls inherited their mother's love of learning and their father's gentle strength. The house was full of noise and chaos and laughter. Everything Zelda had never had as a child, and everything she had dreamed of giving her own children. She made sure her children knew they were loved unconditionally. She made sure they felt safe and protected. She made sure they understood that their home was a place of refuge and comfort, not fear and pain. And she made sure they learned the lessons her own suffering had taught her, that kindness matters, that words and actions have consequences, that everyone carries invisible scars and deserves compassion. Xander taught the children different but equally important lessons. He taught them the value of hard work and integrity. He taught them to treat animals and people with respect. He taught them that real strength is gentle, that real power is used to protect the vulnerable, not exploit them. He taught them by example what it means to be a good man, a good husband, a good father. Together, Xander and Zelda created the kind of home neither of them had known as children. A home where mistakes were forgiven, where tears were comforted, where laughter rang out daily. A home where children felt secure enough to take risks and chase dreams. A home where love was not conditional but freely given. On their 20th wedding anniversary, the whole extended family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Thomas brought his wife and 2 young sons. Grace brought her fiancé, a lawyer from Salt Lake City. Henry came home from veterinary school in California. Ruth and Sarah, now teenagers, helped their mother prepare a feast for everyone. As Xander stood on the porch watching his family laugh and talk and simply be together, he felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. This was what mattered. Not the size of his herd or the value of his land, but this collection of people bound together by love and shared history. This was the legacy that would outlast him, these children and grandchildren who carried forward the lessons he and Zelda had taught them. Zelda joined him on the porch, slipping her hand into his. Her hair was gray now, and lines creased her face, but to Xander, she was as beautiful as the day she stepped off that stage coach. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About how blessed we are. About how none of this would exist if you had not been brave enough to take a chance on a stranger in Utah." "I was not brave. I was desperate, but I am grateful for that desperation now because it brought me here to you, to this life. You remember what you said to me once, years ago, about how your scars were part of your story but not the whole story. I remember. Looking at our family, at everything we have built together, I think your story turned out pretty well." Zelda smiled, her eyes damp with happy tears. "It turned out better than I ever dreamed possible. Because of you. Because of us," Xander corrected. "We did this together." They stood hand in hand, watching their family until Grace called them inside for the anniversary toast. That evening was full of laughter and memories, stories told and retold, plans made for the future. It was everything Zelda had once believed she would never have, and everything she now knew she deserved. Late that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Xander and Zelda snuck back out to the porch like teenagers escaping curfew. They sat together in their usual spot, wrapped in a blanket against the cool night air. 20 years, Zelda marveled. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday that I arrived here, and sometimes it feels like we have always been together." Both are true in a way. Time is strange like that. Do you think we will have 20 more? I hope so. I plan to grow very old with you, Zelda Dalton. I plan to grow very old with you too. They sat in peaceful silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Somewhere in the house, one of their grandchildren cried out in their sleep, and they heard Thomas's wife murmuring comfort. The sound made them both smile. "We did good, did we not?" Zelda said. "We did very good. I want you to know something, Xander. Those scars I used to hide, the ones I thought made me unlovable, they do not hurt anymore. Not physically, that stopped long ago, but they do not hurt emotionally either. When I look at them now, I do not see shame or damage, I see survival. I see the road that led me to you. I see the beginning of my real life. I am so glad you can see them that way now. You deserve to heal in every way possible. I did heal, you helped me heal, and now I am whole. You were always whole, you just needed help seeing it." Zelda rested her head on Xander's shoulder, comfortable and content. "I love you. I will always love you. Thank you for seeing past my scars, for loving every broken part, for showing me that I was not broken at all. Thank you for trusting me enough to let me in. Thank you for being brave enough to show me your scars. Thank you for spending your life with me." They sat on the porch until the stars began to fade with approaching dawn. Two people who had found each other through chance and choice, who had built a love that would endure beyond their own lives and the children and grandchildren they were leaving behind. The frightened bride had long since disappeared, replaced by a confident woman who had learned that scars do not define us, our response to them does. The patient cowboy had been rewarded beyond his wildest dreams, finding not just a wife but a true partner, not just a marriage but a great love. And if sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, Zelda still traced the scars on her arms and remembered the pain that created them, she also remembered what came after the healing, the love, the life she had built from the ashes of her trauma. The scars were a part of her story, but they were not the end of it. They were the beginning, the catalyst that sent her west to a new life and a love that would prove to be her salvation. As the sun rose over the Utah mountains on the morning of their 20th anniversary, Xander and Zelda finally went inside to sleep for a few hours before the day began again. They walked hand in hand through the house full of their sleeping family, grateful for every moment that had led them to this place, to each other, to this beautiful, imperfect, perfect life they had created together. And on the wall above the fireplace, the portrait from their 10th anniversary watched over the sleeping house, a testament to survival, to healing, to the transformative power of patient, unconditional love. In that portrait, Zelda's scars were clearly visible, but so was her smile, so was the love in her eyes as she looked at her family, so was the peace that came from finally being home.